What's going on, Philly sports fans? It's Wednesday night. It's 8:40. It's time for EoP. I'm Big Al,
I'm Freddie Burns.
and we got plenty to talk about. We're going to cover pretty much Eagles and Phillies tonight. Little Sixers talk. Not much of the Flyers home front at this moment in time, but we will get into it all tonight. Of course, as you know, this is brought to you by our great sponsors over at PhillySportsTrips.com, DolansBar.com, Sherry'sTickets.com, and CherryInjuryLaw.com. So we're gonna just kick it right off. The Phillies beat the Padres today, 5-1. Took the series 2-3 after last night's debacle. Michael Lorenzen had a bad 4th and 6th inning for those who stayed up late long enough to see it happen. But it was a good bounce back night. Good to see the players all around. Still, one thing going into September, we were all a little worried about, Fred, that can they continue this hitting the long ball, multi-home run games? And they have for the most part. I mean, they haven't really lost any games because they couldn't hit the ball at all. It hasn't been an issue. Starting pitching has been an issue a little bit with them. But looking at it right now, Kyle Schwarber today set the franchise's record at 10 for leadoff home runs, stealing it from J-Roll, who set it in 2007. Fred, all this talk about Kyle Schwarber, where people get on him about the leadoff position. He's batting a 192, I believe, right about now. At least that was during the game. I don't know if it's still that way. With 41 home runs, is it time to just give in and stop squawking about it, or do you believe he should not be in the leadoff?
I think I gave up a few weeks ago. Maybe it was when you weren't here. Yeah. Me and Joe did the show that week, and we both were like, we're off on it. Like, since the All-Star break, he has 49 games since the All-Star break, 19 home runs, 24 extra base hits. He's got a .976 OPS, 41 RBIs, 54 walks. I should have looked up the strikeouts, but I'm curious because they have to be down within that period. In the last 2 years, he's second in baseball in home runs behind Aaron Judge only. And I think Aaron Judge has 3 more than him, 4 more than him. I think it's time we kind of recognize the flaws and just let go of the flaws and understand the greatness he has at times here. I compared him to Rhys Hoskins early on, and that was wrong because Rhys gets hot and then cold and hot and then cold, where I think Schwarber's a little more consistent than just that bad. So I'm fine. I'm fine with the leadoff. It's the way Topper wants to do it. If you looked up the difference in OPS from the beginning of the year to now, he was 5th. It's probably 3rd now. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But, it wasn't that much of a difference is my point from the next best guy. Like, everyone wants Stott to lead off, and they're close. They're neck and neck in OPS. So, I think it's time we just let it go and stop complaining about it because it's not changing, and they're winning 3-3 on this road trip. They salvaged the Brewers series, but they really should have won the first game. They come back, they blow it on the Bohm error. So they probably should have took that series. They take 2 of 3 here from the Padres. They're winning baseball, man. How can you argue?
Can't argue, and you're absolutely right on the strikeout. So he was 177 on the year, but put it this way, he's only had 2 strikeouts all series long against the Padres. I mean, the man's walking or home run, so as long as he's getting on base, he's doing what a leadoff runner can do. No, he's not your prototypical leadoff runner. He's not a guy who's going to hustle around the bases. They're even comparing him to Babe Ruth, the way he kind of trots around the bases.
That's a little much. That's a little much.
Yeah. Today he got from first to third to score with Bryce Harper's double to make it 3-0 today. And that's kind of my next question. It's nice to see Bryce Harper out of his mini slump that he had. He's kind of been slumping since the beginning of the Brewers series. He's 0 for 20 leading in today's game, but that 2-run double broke that slump, making it 3-0. Question to Freddie Burns: no shave Bryce or shaved Bryce? Which one do you like better?
I like no shave. My daughter and my wife didn't like it. I guess they got really used to the shave. My wife actually likes facial hair, so that might be why. But I'm no shave Bryce, And a little snippy with the reporters today, though, and I kind of agree with them.
I missed that today, unfortunately.
Yeah, they were asking him about his swing, and he's like, "Come on, guys, it's not my swing. Like, you guys know that. Like, stop asking me." He didn't say stop asking me dumb questions, but he was vividly annoyed. He's like, "I'm chasing stuff out of the zone. Like, that's what it was. Like, come on." Like, he was so annoyed, and I agree. Like, they're like, "Whoa, you were so hot with the 300th home run," and it's just like the reporters in this town are great to a point, but then like when there's no drama or controversy, they always gotta like try to drum up something. Like it's just like,
oh yeah,
why can't we talk about he shaved and then he hit that gap, hitting the gap, knocked in a few? Like, why can't we just talk about that and then just be done with it? Like, why do we got to talk about the flaws that really didn't happen today?
The worst part is that sometimes they will re-ask the same question just in a different way. I saw them do that. Like when Alec Boehm, when they walked Harper in front of Alec Boehm when he was red hot, and Alec Boehm hit that home run, that 3-run home run back against the Angels. They kept asking him like, "How did you feel about like being walked? Were you upset? Were you angry?" And then they asked him again, what was going through your head when they put those 4 fingers up? I'm like, isn't that the same thing? Just asked in a different way, but hey, what do I know? But yeah, I mean, listen, it's baseball. I mean, the best players are getting 30% in. So for him to stay that hot consistently, and I'm okay with it. Again, a game of runs, I would be more worried if this team just continued to run the way they were into early and mid-September, because unfortunately that usually bodes that well for the long run, because they're going to start slumping at one point, or they're going to start cooling off at one point. And the last place you want them to cool off is leading into the playoffs. So I'm okay with them coming down there, but I mean, it's still not. It's not bad. They're still getting multi-home run games. Kyle Schwarber had a leadoff home run today. JT Realmuto had his home run today. That is, they're lumping home runs together. And it's good to see behind some good defense. Some defense has been a little bit shaky. Even Bryson Stott had an uncharacteristic error the other day. But other than that, I mean, the team overall, to me, is cooking on most cylinders. I believe the pitching, but especially the starting pitching, is going to be the question mark moving forward, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But speaking of a good defense, Freddie Burns, when I need a good defense, I go to David R. Cherry at cherryinjurylaw.com. You get hurt at work, you get hurt in a motor vehicle accident, personal injury, criminal law. These are life-altering moments. And guess what, guys? David R. Cherry is there to back you up. cherryinjurylaw.com, or simply call them at 610-565-0300. The number again is 610-565-0300. Cherry Firm and cherryinjurylaw.com. So speaking of JT Realmuto, I tweeted out something during the game because it's been talked about a little bit how, he's a road warrior. He plays better away than he does at home. But I went and researched it a little bit, and I tweeted out this. It's staggeringly different. His batting average at home is a 201. He's barely above Kyle Schwarber right now from a batting average just at home. But at away, he's batting a 306. I mean, that is a big, big difference. You would think normally home cooking's the way to go. What do you think it leads this? Is it pressure at CBP or whatever?
Your kid's like calling through the green screen. That's hilarious.
Michael, come on, man.
Michael, what are you doing, man? Can you say
put a shirt on at least, dude? You're not even changed. Jeez. What I deal with on a daily basis.
JT splits home and away. Is that what? Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was distracted by Michael, but
yeah, he can do that.
Which is funny. He's peeking his head through the little thing there. But anyhow, yeah, I just players aren't going to be all-stars every single year. JT Realmuto is great behind the plate. I think he commands the game. His defense and the way he helps these pitchers is such an underrated part of him that's just not shown with the bats. And as far as home and away goes, I think he's just pressing. I mean, I've seen him hit nice, big, nice clutch plays at home. Been there for games, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's not a 350 hitter at home,
No, I mean he's still an overall batting average 257. Like you said, he is the best catcher in baseball just because of his defense alone.
So no, I'm not worried about any of these guys. He had, what do you have, 2 hits today? So maybe he comes out of a slump because someone's going to slump in a few weeks, right? And then maybe he comes out of the slump. You know what I mean? Castellanos is slumping a little bit, but he was 1 for 4 today with a walk. So maybe when he gets home, he comes out, and then Schwarber maybe goes down a little bit in the tank there. So hopefully not in the tank, but different guys are gonna hit. Ultimately, they had 12 hits today, 5 runs. Everybody, contributed in some way. Whether it was a walk or putting the ball in play type of thing. The one play.
No Trey Turner, by the way. No Trey Turner, who's been super hot lately.
Yeah, that too. He had an off day. But I forget. I think it might have been Schwarber. Nah, it wasn't Schwarber. I forget who it was. Anyhow, it was a ground out, but he moved the runners over the second to third. You know what I mean? It wasn't a double play ball, and that's just putting the ball in play. Instead of striking out, that moved, and then Harper knocked them in. So it's just like they're winning by the home run, but they're also winning fundamentally sound baseball, manufacturing runs too. But good.
With all the runners in scoring position that they left too, if a couple of them came across, this is like an 8-1 game.
Right. Which we've seen it, like where we got the runners in scoring position issue. Like in the beginning of the year, we were screaming. That should actually made us confident because they had all these runners in scoring position. They just couldn't knock them home. So we knew eventually that they would turn that around. That's why, at least on this show, we never hit the panic button. So I'm excited for the bats. The pitching, they're starting to come around. Not Nola. Wheeler today, 6 innings, 1 hitter, 0 runs, 7 Ks. He had a ton of pitches, though. I think he got up to 105. And they took a 1-hitter as a group into the 9th inning. I know Strom gave up 2 hits and a run there in the 9th, but he did the job. He had a nice cushion. I think it was a good move using him in that spot there. And they also, instead of letting him sit there, what they've done in the past, once he did get in trouble, they got someone up. But he ended up getting the last out. So that was good. You're going to have the games where you lose 8-0 like yesterday. But
they played. It played out well for them. Wheeler really gave them something. And last night, people were a little upset when they brought Britton Covey in, and they're like, oh well, you're waving the white flag. Well, sometimes
who'd you say they brought him?
Oh, what's his name, Covey or whatever he says.
You said Britton.
I said Britton. Whatever.
Dylan. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, I know. Dylan. They're like, oh, you're waving the white flag. Well, it's a long season. You have a pretty good set in the standings, and you're down 6 or 4, 5, 6 runs at the time. Yeah, you let it. You kind of have to let it go because now look at these guys all got a rest today. They get an off day tomorrow because they're traveling back home. They got the Marlins coming in tomorrow or on Friday, and divisional game, divisional series, very important to keep things in front of you. Speaking of those fish down in Florida, some news coming out. The couple big names that we're not going to see this week. You got Sandy Alcantara, who's on the 15-day DL right now, so we will not be seeing him. And Jorge Soler, who's one of their best hitters when he's hot, he's out on the 10-day DL, so we will not be seeing these guys for the rest of the season.
And he got us in a game, maybe 2 games this year early on that I remember him burning us. So, I mean, for some reason have Alcantara's number. I mean, even though it's like he'll go 6 innings, only giving up 1, we seem to find a way. But to not have to face him at all, oh my God, it's a huge plus. Mm-hmm. And where are they at in the standings right now? All right, they're about 5.5 back from us. So this is a big series.
Miami's only a half game out of the. There's only a half game out of the wild card right now.
Right, and they're 5.5 back from the number one wild card. So huge series here. Because the Phillies, essentially the Phillies really all they got to do is take 1. Obviously you want to win the series, but getting swept would be devastating because now you put a dent into that lead. If you lose 1 game, no big deal. So we do catch a break there. I'm pretty excited. I'm going to the game Saturday night.
I will also be there on Saturday.
Quick shout out. It's childhood cancer awareness night, and Nemours is doing a big thing there. There's a ton of childhood cancer charities there. And my son actually is going to be on the field. They're going to announce his name. He's going to be one of the people with cutting the cancer ribbon. And then he's also going to exclusively dance with the Fanatic on the dugout, which is going to be pretty freaking awesome. So I'm pumped for that. And then hopefully they get us a W. I had to give him a quick shout out there, my son.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll be there too, covering the game. So hopefully I'll get some good pictures and video of that I can throw up on EoP. So it'll be fun.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Speaking of shout outs, we want to wish a big old happy birthday to our boy Joey Sheeran. Yesterday turned the big 4-0. So he's enjoying his time off, even though he is still working. We all really don't get much time off, but he is still posting and doing social media. But he is time off with his family, enjoying it. So good for him. Happy birthday, Joe. So hopefully he's enjoying his time with his family. And one last Phillies topic. You talked about pitching. We talked about how dominant Zach Wheeler is. I think sometimes that we take that for granted, how good he is. Because even when Zach Wheeler, he's like pizza. Even when he's not great, he's still good. He's still better than most. But looking at talking playoffs, kind of foreshadowing right now, after what you saw from Michael Lorenzen and what we've seen from Michael Lorenzen since the no-hitter, talk about kind of like blowing your wad all in one shot. He's been kind of very, I don't know how you say, up and down. I don't know what you want to call it, but
he's been down. He's just been down since the no-hitter. But they messed with his rest. You know what I mean? He was adamant that he does not like that. They messed with his rest, and even Wheeler was like, "Yo, I'm pitching on the 5th day. Like, what are we doing here?" Like, and they're kudos to Topper for now listening to his pitching staff after he's seen them struggle. But I mean, he kind of should listen to them from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, they said after the Brave series, they're going back to the 5-man. That's where they were planning on running it to the Brave series, since they have that doubleheader on Monday. I'm glad he did listen to him, because it does. These guys are creatures of habit. Even though you're like, oh, you're giving them more rest, it sometimes throws them off too. I mean, there is something to do with it. I mean, talk about like a football player in a bye week, how it, sometimes it throws them off, even though they're getting the rest that they need. But it is kind of a balancing act, because you don't want dead arms. We saw Zach Wheeler's arm kind of get a little loosey-goosey up until that last game of this World Series. We all know how that played out, but he bounced back big time. But let me ask you this. Fred Burns, if the season was to end today, Phillies in the top wild card spot, hosting the Cubs, who, by the way, I hope we don't right now. Cubs are a hot team. They're like 700 baseball since the break. These guys were out of it. We thought they were going to be sellers. And they are just sneaking up. They're not too far behind us right now. Who are your 4? I know, knowing Zach Wheeler, yes. In order, who's your 4-man rotation, and who are you sending to the bullpen with our five pitchers right now?
Well, if it's a wild card, it's what, a 5-game series?
Well, yeah, it's 3.
It's a 3-game series. So so it's really 3 pitchers. Oh man,
so who's your 3, and then your 4?
Really, it's tough. Round. It's tough because I'd probably switch it up for the second. I would like to. I think Suarez has success in the bullpen. So though I like him as the 3, and I like his energy, I feel like for the first series I would make him the 3, but then if we get through there, I would maybe move him to. I don't know. I really got to ride out this last month of September, because it'll be Wheeler or Nola, and then it's.
So you're definitely Nola at number 2 is my question, I guess then.
Yeah. I think we have to. We have no choice. I think he's a 2-3 for life pitcher. I don't see him as a 1, nor did I ever. But I think he's earned, for the most part. He has his bad games. He gives up the long ball a lot this year. A lot. Not even this year. But I'll just say, I mean, he probably is your second best pitcher. So we'll go him 2. Suarez 3, and then Lorenzen. He was an all-star this year. He threw a no-hitter. But if he pitches like he has the last few weeks, going into the playoffs, I have to take him out. I have to go with Walker, who's been more consistent, even though he has a little bit higher of an ERA. It's going to be tough. it's definitely going to be a tough decision.
Lorenzen's played out of the bullpen as well. I mean, his starting's actually kind of fairly newer to him.
Right. This is like almost like a fluke year in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you wonder again. He was an all-star coming into it. He was one of had the most innings thrown pitches. So that to see fatigue, I just worry that can he bounce back from it? You give him extra time, he hasn't bounced back from it. I mean, yesterday or what? Not yesterday, Sunday. What was it? Or Monday? No, it was Monday. He started off well. He looked like a little bit. He was.
I think it was yesterday. I think it was yesterday.
He pitched on Memorial Day.
Oh, he did. My fault.
Or Labor Day. I mean. Yeah. So.
Sorry.
So yeah, like he started off well, and then he kind of. No, it was yesterday. You're right. I'm so
wrong. They won on Labor Day. They won on Labor Day yesterday.
Yeah.
I went to sleep. I didn't watch it, and I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, right. Didn't stay up for that one.
It's all 8-0 when I woke up at 5 a.m. I'm like, nice.
Poor Matty B had to do the Fighting's final for us here at Edge of Philly Sports, and he was said, "How I get stuck with these late night games and they lose like this." But yeah, I mean, it's Michael Lorenzen. I worry if there's a little dead arm in him, and it'd be nice if you could stick him in the bullpen, but maybe that'll be his little saving grace if he doesn't have to go 5, 6, 7 innings. If he only has to go maybe 1 or 2, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. A little fun fact because we're going to move on now. The Phillies at this time, up until as of the start of the game, 138 games played. In 1980, they were 75-63. In 2008, they were 75-63. And in 2023, they were 76-62. So I know that doesn't mean much, but it does show you that they're trending in the right direction. Trending in the right direction.
Quickly, I just want to, Walt, thank you for listening. Again, every week, just about you have comments up on here.
I love Walt.
And anyone listening, appreciate the support. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button, share it out for us. Help support us as much as possible. We're trying to get as much traction as we can to take this to the next level. But he brings up a good point here with the quick hook, because as I'm saying, I'm thinking that Will Topper, I feel like sometimes he doesn't have the right feel for the hook, when not the hook, when to hook. I still think he should have left Wheeler in the World Series game last year. I feel like he doesn't have a good feel for the hook.
I think he plays a player's manager that a little bit. He's afraid of hurting people's,
Well, players want to play, Al. Like he's playing.
I know, but I think he's afraid of hurting.
He's being the analytics guy, is what he's doing. Like the players, leave me in the game. Like even Walker lost his crap in the beginning of the year because he was throwing at Jim, and they had to calm him down. Like, it's not like he errs on the numbers with the pitchers, no doubt about it.
I mean, a couple things with the bullpen. Sir Anthony's been pitching fairly well. He's only let up 1 run in the last 14 appearances, which is great.
Good outing today too. What's up, Rob? Go Phillies, fly goes fly. Big Sunday. We got some birds talk coming up in a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
are you surprised that San Diego lineup is having a bad season this year? Yeah, man, they got some pop, and I want my Fernando Tatis rookie card to pay off for me down the road. I'm getting a little frustrated with this.
Well, I mean, I don't know who has a bigger payroll with a bigger letdown. Was it them or the New York Mets? I mean, two teams who had big payroll, some big names on them. And now I think today you had former teammates Max Scherzer and who's the guy who went back to Houston? Verlander. They went up against each other today. So, and they said it was the first time. I kind of found it a little weird, but I guess they were teammates before, so it makes sense. But this is the first time they're ever going up against each other. So interesting with that. But and there's another team, the Rangers. Hot. They were a hot team. They made some big moves. They bring in Max Scherzer. And they fell back down to about 500. So that's a team that you have to you look at it. Just it doesn't always pay off. I mean, they're in the third wild card spot in the AL, and they're tied with Toronto right now for that third wild card spot. So
the the Angels were hot at and they took a huge dive too. So yeah, but
Crazy.
the Rangers whooped our butt. Would they sweep us to open up the season? But
They
that just
always
goes to show you.
Yeah.
That goes to show you, man. Like how many games below 500 were we for a while, and then just kept like staying within striking distance. Like baseball is a long season. We
Well,
still
look
have a
at
long
Chicago.
mark. We could
Chicago's the
lose
biggest
right
one.
now. We could go like on a 10-game losing streak right now, and the sky will be falling. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Well,
just
do you
such a
remember last
long.
September?
Yes, I do.
About 2 weeks from now, people were last year. Certain people were thinking they're not going to even make the playoffs. You know,
I wish I could find my tweet with the stats because I was screaming it. I'm like, they limped into the playoffs. They were, I think it was 4-10 going into October with 2 5-game losing streaks, and then they got into October. Luckily the Astros had nothing to play for, needed one win and a loss by Milwaukee, who was also floundering, and got in, and they went 3-3 in October as well. They had a couple more games in October than they do this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they limped in, and they were down. What were they down? 3-1 in the ninth. What were they down to the Cardinals? 2-0. I forget. And they come and not only come back, explode in that inning.
Yeah.
In
the ninth inning, it was 2-0 in the ninth. They come back, they win.
But they get like 7 runs or something. And it's just, that's what's cool about baseball. But it sucks 100%. When you're on the other end. It does.
And you know what? Like I talk about Chicago. I mean, they kind of remind me a little bit of the Phillies last year. I mean, here's a team who, we were all talking about picking them apart like vultures during the trade deadline. Like they're going to be sellers. They have nothing to talk about. They're a game and a half behind us in the wild card for the top wild card spot. Them and Milwaukee are kind of going back and forth between first in the Central and the second wild card spot right now. And little playoff implications is we kind of want Chicago. I mean, I don't want Chicago because they're so hot right now, but at the same time, Chicago, if it's a tie thing, we own the series record with Chicago, but not with Milwaukee this year. So it's interesting how this can play out for us. So it's gonna make for a heck of a soap opera moving forward into the postseason. And I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch in any which way, assuming they're making the playoffs. But the way the Phillies are playing, it doesn't make sense not to believe that. And guys, what else doesn't make sense is not to go to phillysportstrips.com, because we're going to talk a little Eagles in a second. And if you want to travel like the pros and travel to see your birds play all over the country, of course they're playing the Patriots this weekend. That game has been sold out with Philly Sports Trips for a while. This is still available. I believe even the Jets game might be even sold out. I'm going to check on the website. I keep checking every so often just to see what's going on. But the Eagles-Jets game has already been sold out, and that's a little ways down the line. So right now, the one that you can get to the closest, that's not a home game, which they have all the tailgate set up for, is this great game in Tampa. So get to head to Tampa with Hollis Thomas, Vince Rapali, David Akers. Just a great time. Like I said, great food, trip, tickets, tailgate you'll never forget, an experience none unlike like any others you're going to have. Go to the ultimate Tampa trip with phillysportstrips.com and all the other away games, all the home games, and so much more. phillysportstrips.com. Tell them EoP sent you. So real quick, guys, we're going to talk Eagles, but I got to. I'd be remiss not to do this. I have to jump in a little Sixers talk because of a certain Freddie Burns. Me and Freddie haven't worked together in a couple weeks now because I was off last week, and him and Joe did an amazing job as usual. But the week, he was off last week. The week before I was off, some news, not news, but a conversation was had about a certain guy that just can't keep his name from popping up in the news in Philadelphia, Mr. Ben Simmons, who, Fred, let's be honest, you were one of the biggest pro Ben Simmons guys up until the very end. But they were talking about, like Ben Simmons said, he'd be willing to get traded back to Philly after all that was said and done with him. And the conversation was had by a lot of people. Would you welcome Ben Simmons back? Now, Fred, you all at the end until he kind of ultimately, I would say, burns you and many other Ben Simmons supporters. if Ben Simmons was able to come back in a role that we fit him in, of course, for the price that we want to pay or whatever it is, or something without having to sell the farm, would you be willing to bring Ben Simmons back, and what role would you put him in?
Are you saying for James Harden, who we're kind of stuck with right now?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say a one-up trade for James Harden for Ben Simmons, but yeah.
I think that's kind of what it would be. And being honest, Ben Simmons was not the player I defended at all. Like, I defended a all defensive player of the year caliber defender who could drive to the basket, was 50% in the lane, wasn't a great scorer, found people, open people, but ultimately was a liability because of the jumper at the point guard position. But they also didn't have players to complement him that you could make the argument that way. So the guy he is right now, I want nothing to do with. But if he is a return to the Ben Simmons that we had here that plays defense, because remember that game and he threw that pass and everyone kills him. And I know that. But he also made a steal after that and almost made a game-winning steal guarding Trae Young before that game ended that just gets swept under the rug because he's scared to shoot. But as a defender, he wasn't scared at all. So if I can get that guy back on this team with Nick Nurse and the way Nick Nurse emphasizes defensive ball, well, boys, bring back number 25 because I'll take him back.
Now, that's with the caveat that Ben Simmons says.
I'll take him back, but I need the old Ben Simmons. I don't need that guy. You can't trust him. And then you said, make sure we're clear on this. You said the contract, like he's not a max player. Like, I'm not giving him a max deal yet. Like, I don't think he's going to become a shooter. I've given up on that. Though I've seen him shoot it in. I used to shoot it all over the floor before the game. In summer league that first year, it was unbelievable the shots he was taking. And I just don't know why it's gone. But considering the situation we have now, he's a young player that's a defensive player of the year caliber guy. Nick Nurse, I think, gets the best out of his guys. And I think, considering him and Maxey, like as a combo type deal, could work. But, it's not going to happen. But for Harden, because that's the spot we're in now. Because even next year with the cap, I think Maxey's going to take another step. He wouldn't be in the point guard spot. He'd be in the point forward spot, and he could be a three. You move him. He would handle the ball in transition. I wouldn't have him running the offense though.
I mean, that would be for me to even consider bringing him back. I want him down away from the point, just completely away from the point. Playing underneath.
You have to have him. You have to have him with the ball in his hands in transition. So, that's one of his biggest strengths. So, if Nick Nurse teams, they like to get out and run, which is why I think the fit is there. So you'd want the ball in his hands. But as far as coming down, setting up the offense in a half-court offense, I totally agree with you. You can't have the ball in his hands. Because with Quentin Moore saying the foul thing, his free throw percentage was terrible in that series. It was improving, not improving good, but improving from what it was. It went from 30 to I think 60 at one point. So it was getting okay-ish. But I agree, he's a liability there. But again, no max contract. He's coming to play as the role we put him in, which he probably wouldn't do. So it won't work.
Speaking of returning players, Danny Green returns to the Sixers. A little news that kind of flew under the radar yesterday.
My boy.
Does that move the radar for you? Move the needle for you? I mean, blip on the radar.
I just think he's a guy that this fan base just totally doesn't understand. Like they expect him to be Danny Green on the Spurs. He never was going to be that. He was the glue to that team. As soon as he got injured, they lost that series. He's a good defender. When he got hot, He's a very streaky shooter. Good leader. Got in Embiid's face before PJ Tucker did. There's games they were down that he would pull them together, rally them. They'd keep their head focused, and they got the W. So, a veteran guy, Danny Green, I like him. I think he's good. I just think the expectations have to come back down. Like he's not going to be that guy. He's going to be off the bench. Maybe he shouldn't have been starting as much when he was here. Maybe that got expectations jacked up. But, I'm fine. If you could get him and PJ, I don't know what the contract was. I didn't get a chance to look. But if I can have him and PJ Tucker coming off the bench, I love it.
And then do you want to touch on the other Sixers news? You want to move right into the Birds?
Well, yeah, let's bring it up because it is a kind of a big deal. I'll bring up like the highlights from it, and that's courtesy of Sean Bernard of Pick Swap Media. You got to go follow him. So I'll just bring up the gist. But Ramona Shelburne laid out like an article today, and it basically said Harden wants credit for the basic basketball things. So he's like, the fact that he sacrificed his game of not being the guy, and he took catch and shoot threes and ran off screens and did all these things that like basketball players would do to expand their game, he wants credit for, as if like, I don't know. So that's one thing that rubs me the wrong way. Doc Rivers was harder on Harden than publicly reported. I said that every single show we did, that I know, because I knew Doc was hard on him based on what they were saying, and the way he would respond and the little inklings that would come out. Doc definitely was not down with all that traveling stuff. He pouted when he didn't decline on the All-Star. So basically they declined him for the All-Star. The commissioner reaches out to him and says, hey, we're going to put you in as a reserve. He doesn't respond to him, like, because he's all pouting about it. In the meantime, the commissioner's like, oh, screw you, then went and got Pascal Siakam as the guy. And then Harden came back and said, yeah, I'll accept it. And he said, you're too late, dude. Like, playing these little games like this is just a testament of that character.
Absolutely. And we defended, we defended that character. I mean, I did defend his character a little bit. Like, it's like he did a decent job of hiding it a little bit. But things like, if you see little breadcrumbs throughout the year from Christmas on, like when you start hearing like, oh, well, the Rockets were talking about being on him, like, that's him and his people putting that out there. And then like all the little things that you mentioned now, like, yeah, there's definitely like breadcrumbs that his character, like things that we didn't know about that, and then on top of it, you point out there was probably 2 games in that playoff. If it wasn't for him, we might have got swept by the Celtics, or it would have been a lot tighter games.
We definitely get swept by the Celtics without those 2 games.
But at the same time, it's a me situation. You can't win a championship on that. He isn't. If this was Harden 5, 6, 7 years ago, sure, maybe you could get away with that because he's younger. He can go harder. It's just he just didn't have it. He just kind of it's like he lost it. It fell out of him.
He still got it. But he doesn't have it to that level. He doesn't have the lift. He doesn't have as much speed, but he's still definitely an all-star player in this league. I know he missed it by a little bit, but he definitely is that caliber. He's just not a superstar. And he has nights where he'll do that. But it's just, and before he came here, I hated James Harden. The first time we were going to trade Ben Simmons, I was so against that trade. It was Simmons and Maxey for Harden. I remember on our show, I was so against it. The only one I even considered trading was for Lillard. I hated Harden because he doesn't show up in the playoffs. He never did as the Rockets. Once he became a Sixer, he transformed his game, played the point guard the way I've never seen it before. I bought in, and I always support the home team guy. I'm a kind of a homer in that sense. But,
sure.
The other 4 things were he ditched Embiid's wedding. Maybe he had some other thing to do, whatever. Partying was an issue all year. We knew that, but the stories came out in the playoffs. But then he goes and drops 50 the next night. But then also Sixers players knew he wasn't going to be ready for Game 7 because he was hungover. So, like, I can't have it on my team. Sixers were split on the kind of offer they were going to make, and the Sixers were very surprised he opted in. So that is telling because of Nick Nurse's comments in the press conference about James has a decision to make. They were surprised he opted in. Harden isn't going to look past his feelings moving forward. So, this just
is his opting in just nobody wanted them for the money that they were that was part of his option. I mean, that's not surprising to me at all. I mean, would have been more surprised if somebody gave him what he was looking for.
Remember, me and Joe were kind of going at him like, he's not going to get this money elsewhere. I'm like, he's not getting 2 year. He's not getting a $50 million per year deal. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see how if the Sixers would have gave him a 4-year max, it would have been egregious. The only thing I could see is if the Sixers gave him like, hey, we'll give you 45 because of the money you sacrificed with an option on the second year. So we'll pay you a little more this year. We'll expand it and then reward you for thanking you for taking the pay cut. But it's an opt out this next year if you show up the same way. So I think it got down to the last minute. He realized, yeah, there's no one going to take me, and no, I'm going to be making $20 million a year. I have to take the 35. So he's just full of crap. You know what I mean? He's a fraud. Yeah. He's always been a fraud. I'm going to defend Philly athletes when they're here, especially when they're playing well. And I was happy with him. And Maxey liked him, learned a lot from him. But apparently players weren't happy with his stuff. But then PJ Tucker goes and defends him. And then Embiid kind of did his tweets when they were taking shots at Morey about being a liar. So, whatever. But we had to touch on it because it's a story. But
sure.
Again, I see Ben Simmons, I feel like gave me more to love and root for than James Harden did. And I feel like Ben Simmons, he was never partying or doing like going out the night before and stuff like that. He just he's a little bit of a head case on offense.
I think they're both head cases just in a different way.
But it's different. Like it's been like, hey, a shooting thing and like wanting to be passive, which he doesn't have the killer attitude, which makes him not a 1. He's a 3. You know what I mean? He not the position 3, not small forward. I mean like as far as like star players to rely on, he's a 1, 3, 4 guy. You have to recognize those flaws. Where Harden's different. It's like a party guy that isn't going to show up and do that type of stuff. See ya. If you want to party and kill it, Iverson left for AC every single night, but he dropped 40 every night too. You know what I mean? And even Michael Jordan left and went to the casinos, but he backed it up. If you ain't gonna back it up, then
like I said, during the playoffs,
show up for games. Like you got to at least give me 20 and 10, 20, 10 assists or 15 and 12. You can't just like be what those games were so awful. It offset the good games, but
yeah,
this is good riddance at this point. After this article drops, it just I don't see where they lowered his value significantly more. He's gonna get traded for nothing. Hopefully they can just bring back expiring contracts though, and don't get stuck with anyone.
Sure, absolutely. So let's do this. Let's talk about the story to talk about, but real quick before we jump into any of that. I want to remind you guys that, we talk about all these games. The Sixers are starting in 6 weeks. The Flyers are starting around the same time. The Phillies have plenty of games going on for the month of September and in October. And, of course, the Eagles, NFL football starting. And tickets are already hard to get. But you know what I do? I go to sharestickets.com because you get those premium seats without paying those premium prices. Sports, concerts, theaters, you name it, they got it. Great prices, no hidden fees. sharestickets.com. And save an additional 10% off using that great promo code EoP10. That's right, EoP10 promo code will save you 10% off. And like I said, Sherry's Tickets is for sports theaters, sports, concert theaters, you name it. And you're not going to get bamboozled at checkout. You're not going to go, $100 for a ticket? Great, I can afford that. Oh, by the way, it's $212 now when you checked out. You're not going to get that. It's the price you see is the price you're going to pay, plus the additional 10% off with that great promo code EoP10. So check them out, sharestickets.com, promo code again, EoP10. So we're gonna transition. I mean, Freddie, it's here, man. I felt like it's taken forever, and we, next to the Kansas City Chiefs, we played the deepest into the NFL season last year, and it has felt like a lifetime. We've been talking about it. We saw a great Eagles draft again, at least on paper, a good draft. 2 first-round picks who we would have probably never gotten unless things just fell away for the Eagles. Great work by Howie Roseman. But it's here now. It's time. First game, week 1. We're in Foxborough. It's Tom Brady Appreciation Day or something like that, whatever they're calling it. And we're taking on the New England Patriots. Now, it's not the New England Patriots of the past that we're used to seeing, but still Bill Belichick-driven team. My question to you is one of the guys who had the biggest hypes, the number 9 pick in the draft, number 1 overall for the Eagles, Jalen Carter. A lot of hype coming out of camp with him from players, his new nickname, Baby Rhino. Just saying he doesn't even know his own strength that he has. Guys like Lane Johnson saying, I don't like going up against him. Like he's a tough competitor, and I guess the iron sharpening iron situation comes in. Knowing how the Pats O-line is and all the hype around Jalen Carter, does he feast this weekend, and does he feast into the year for you?
He's going to feast. I think he's going to be a Jerome Brown type guy. It's going to be an interesting matchup, the full length of what his conditioning is. Can he get through 4 quarters? And the Eagles like to rotate players a lot. So, but the Patriots come back with 4 of their 5 starters from last year. Pretty solid running offensive line last year. I think Pro Football Focus had them ranked 12th, 13th maybe. So it's a solid line he's going to go up against, but I think you're going to have an outstanding year from Jalen Carter, and you're going to have Aaron Donald, Jerome Brown, like that type of power. And he hasn't even learned how to use his power because he was more of a finesse guy. He's really learning his power. He doesn't even know how good he is what a lot of the people are saying, or how strong he is. So you can use both. Jalen Carter is he's going to be up there for Defensive Rookie of the Year, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the consensus right now, and that is, that's how I feel about it. I mean, watching the guy play, I know we haven't seen a lot from him. I know we haven't seen, it's just really tiny, tastings, tidbits from him. But I don't think these guys, these Eagles players like Lane Johnson, like Jason Kelce, like Brandon Graham, who will sit there, and I don't think they're just going to pump up a guy for the sake of pumping him up. I believe what these guys say. They've been around long enough. There's no reason for them to do it. You know what I mean? Of all these guys, they've been around. They're veterans. They've been to the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. They know how this works. There's no reason for them to have to. Even a guy like Fletcher Cox is taking him under his wing because I think he's like, this is my way of keeping my longevity with the Eagles maybe a little bit. If this guy can eat and I can pick up the scraps, I can continue to play maybe another year. God only knows with Fletcher Cox. But I think all hours are pointing up in my eyes for Jalen Carter, and I'm just excited to see how he plays out. Now, there's been like things saying, oh, will he have 10 plus sacks? And there's been guys out there, who've been Hall of Famers like Aaron Donald, a name that you've already mentioned, who didn't get 10 plus sacks in his rookie year. Is that just being a little too lofty?
No, I don't think it is. He's an animal, dude. I wouldn't be down on him if he didn't, type of thing. So it's not like, oh, what's up with this guy if he doesn't, but he is fully capable, especially the way that he's going to have Jordan Davis on the other side, Fletcher Cox, the main guys that they quit, then Milton Williams, then they kept Tupalutu. Contavious Street had 3.5 sacks last year. So you're going to have all these interior guys, and then you got the guys on the outside that Milton Williams, if I didn't say him. Then you got the guys on the outside that are coming off, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett, if he doesn't end up getting traded, but he still does. He's a knucklehead, but he does provide somewhat of a rush, at least in the form of Harry's, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, Nolan Smith now. So I just think with all those weapons, 70 sacks last year, teams will have to, if he doesn't get the 10, then the edge is going to get a ton because teams are going to have to scheme one way or the other. They're going to have to pick their poison.
Speaking of Mac Jones, quarterback for the New England Patriots, referred to the Eagles' defensive line as the best in the NFL during an interview today. And it's like going up against a beast. I think he knows his O-line is shaky as much as the rest of us do and thinks that this team's going to feed. So that's something to look at. So is he seeing, will he be seeing ghosts on the field the way that this team plays? We'll find out. We'll get into our predictions and how we think the game will play out towards in the next few minutes, though. But it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. Speaking of first-round picks, other one, Nolan Smith. Will he be ready? He was asked a question today, and to quote him, "Does a bear shit in the woods?" So that for anybody who doesn't know, the quote is, yes, the Bear does shit the wind, so he is going to be ready. Do you think he's going to be 100% ready, or do you think they'll use him kind of sparingly, especially this week 1 in New England?
I mean, he's on the injury report, so he's definitely battling something. He has a smaller frame. He's got the animal mentality, killer mentality. I think he does play. I don't think it's a big deal either way. If they sit him, then they play him another week. That's fine too. But hopefully he's ready to play, get his feet wet. They're going to use him in a spot role, a pass rusher role to begin with. Though he did stop the run well at Georgia. So, but I'm interested to see how Nolan Smith pans out. Again, through 4 quarters, getting pounded by professional NFL athletes. It's a lot different than Georgia, where you play a quarter, 2 quarters against weaker competition a lot of the time with the way that their defense is set up and all the great players. Can he last through? But what we've seen in preseason from him was excellent in the spot plays he had. So I'm very excited, and I think he will play. I just don't know how much.
Yeah. No, I really hope. I mean, and if he can get up to, I know he looks a little smaller than the rest of the guys, but the man can get around people, and if he can play as much as we think he can, having him and Hassan Reddick and Brandon Graham just kind of feeding in and out, it could be hell for the other team if these guys play out as well as we think they can. And speaking of Hassan Reddick, who we've talked about a little bit, who's been talked about possibly wanting more money. There's been some small conversation. Nick Bosa signed today, is one of the most expensive defensive linemen. I guess that's what they put him as, with his new contract with 5 years guaranteed, $122 million.
170 with the 122 guaranteed. So
yeah, so
he could make 170.
Yeah, so it's I mean, is that in your eyes overpaying, or do you think that a guy like Nick Bosa, barring any injuries, is 100% worth it?
I mean, pass rush is a premium thing in this NFL right now. The league seems to be going more and more towards passing, which, having a good defense versus having a pass rusher that causes turnovers and an okay defense seems to be a trend. The Chiefs typically don't have a great D. They have a middle of the pack D, but they find a way to get the pass rush going. So, yeah, it's worth it. I think the 49ers have guys there and a good defense. While they did lose, his name's escaping me, to the Texans. Linebacker we had here. I don't know.
DeMeco
Ryans. So, it's worth the money. I don't know. Not on the Eagles. I don't think we pay that much. That's why we draft well. But do you pay Hassan Reddick and continue to draft the edge?
Javon Hargrave, that kind of, not the same money.
But he's different. He's different. He's not. He's a pass rusher up the middle, but you replaced him with Jalen Carter. Who's going to be even better. But,
no, I'm saying the Niners. They spending a lot of money on that defense between now. Nick Bosa making $34 million a year ish. You have Javon Hargrave making his money.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't do it. No, but you got to.
They got a lot of money tying up Trent Williams. He got a lot of money tied up in him. Who else you got out there? They don't have a quarterback they're spending a lot of money on. So I guess, having the last pick of the draft as your starting quarterback, maybe that'll be a reason.
Yeah, Joe, if he was getting a blank check, he already would have got it, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think if he makes,
they already would have done it. Now they may rip it up and do something mid-season, but I think Howie's very strategic with that, and he'll get paid, especially if he produces. But why wouldn't it have already happened?
Sure. Couple real quick things.
Unless he's not upset. Maybe he's not upset.
I think some of it was a little blown out of proportion.
He did make weird comments though about it, like, you all know what's happening here or whatever. So, but.
So speaking of first round picks, Patriots have one of their own in their backfield. Is he going to get an NFL welcome? Dealing with, he can't cover 3 guys at a time. is he going to have to really struggle his first game in through the NFL?
Well, Christian Gonzalez, I thought he was, I don't know. A lot of people, I don't know who the best quarter was. I'm not an NFL draft guy, but based on just me watching the few highlights I did, I don't like, I'm not an expert, but I thought he looked the best. Like, I really liked Christian Gonzalez. But I think he's going to have, obviously, his hands filled. But I wouldn't sleep on the other corners they have as well. They got the three other Jones guys. What's it? Marcus, Jack, and then obviously Jonathan Jones. Where did they get him from? The Texans. Jonathan Jones as well. So they had 8 interceptions combined last year. Quarterback ratings were, roughly around 70, 67 against all those guys. So I think collectively as a group, they will have their hands filled. But it will be an interesting matchup to see how the Patriots try to guard such a diverse offense like the Eagles. You have Goddard in there. They lose McCourty. They have Kyle Duggar still, who I really liked coming out. So it's going to be interesting to see. But certainly he has his hands filled. But we'll see if he'll have to put his money where your mouth is, I guess he's saying. Well, but then again, they could decide to not do that. They could decide to put him over here and then do something else with it, because Belichick, he's had a whole year basically to prepare for this game. So there's a lot of things that they may do to try to help that, and their pass rush ain't that bad either.
Well, Jones, and Gonzalez sounds like a law firm, not so much a defensive backfield, but we'll go with that. All right, so let's just get down into it. We have a few minutes left here, and I want to get into it with you about the matchup. How does Jalen Hurts come out week 1, and how does the Eagles fare in Foxborough against the New England Patriots? What's your verdict?
But the prediction, we got to break more down. We got to see what the key matchups are. But I guess before we get into that, I don't want to do the prediction yet. But if let's say, I don't know, the different things you think. So I think another big matchup is the Pats run D, versus the Eagles offensive line. We have a huge offensive line, but they weren't a bad run D last year. They drafted that defensive tackle. What's the second round pick? Keon White. He makes his debut. And the Eagles have a running back carousel that we don't know what we're doing. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. I think that's an interesting matchup to take a look at. The inside linebacker, Jawan Brantley. He was a great Judon's another great guy that the Patriots have. So the Eagles offense, I think, as diverse as it was last year, with Belichick preparation, it's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out. If we go over to the Eagles defense, that's another thing. Let's see what happens. So Bill O'Brien is now back as the offensive coordinator, calling the shots for the Patriots. Will that change things for Mac Jones, who, wasn't that great of a quarterback last year, and he was complaining about the offense? It's rumored that they're going to go back to using 2 tight ends and really utilizing the tight ends. They just got Juju Smith-Schuster on one end, who had 33 yards or something, maybe like 70 catches, something like that, 7 touchdowns, something in that ballpark. And then who's the other guy?
He had 78, and then he had about 3.
Devontae Parker, who, he always put out numbers for me in fantasy. I know he only played 13 games last year, had like 30 catches, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, something in that range. But, they're 2 good receivers. So how are the Eagles defensively going to match up with Sean Desai, who's a rookie defensive coordinator? How is this going to play out? Are the Eagles going to use Bradbury in the slot against these tight ends? Or is the Maddox good enough to handle the tight ends? Will Josh Jobe get a ton more reps? Will they expose Reed Blankenship? Safeties look good in preseason, and Reed didn't play much, but we don't know. So I think it's a very interesting matchup to watch Bill O'Brien versus Sean Desai, and what type of defense this actually is going to be. He says it's going to be an angry pass rush, aggressive defense. But I mean, we had 70 sacks last year. It's not that worse. I mean, how much better can it get? as far as the pass rush goes. Are we going to go to 80 sacks, 90 sacks? You know what I'm saying? We'll dial up some blitzes, maybe cause some more turnovers off the sacks. But how much better can that actually get, and what Sean Desai can do to make that happen? So I'm very intrigued to look at that whole matchup. And then the running game. The Eagles' run defense was not good last year. You know, they brought in Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph in the middle of the season. And it got better, but it was never good. Now you got a Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott against a good Pats, you know, offensive line. So are they? They are.
Is the offensive line that good?
13th ranked per Pro Football Focus. So I'm not saying they're top 10, but it's not like we're playing a bad offensive line. And 4 of the 5 starters are back. And you know how that works with cohesion. You're a lineman coach. You build a bond. You maybe get a little better. And now you got Bill O'Brien there. So I think with all that said, the Patriots' plan of attack is going to be to run the football, muck it up. It's a 3.5-point spread. They are Joey chiming in here, read earlier. Maybe they are a mess. I don't know. Yeah. Based on last year, I can only go off that. I don't know. Maybe
they have some. They have some injuries. They have some guys who, I think they have a young. The one guy that is their center. Everybody else has been kind of. There has been a cohesion issue. I've read too. That's why I was saying, are they as good? Because the same thing Joe must have been reading, looking into that, because that's my question. Will Stevenson, will and Elliott be able to be as effective if they are a quote unquote as much as a mess as they have been? Because we all know, that's why the Eagles don't pay running backs. That's why you'll never see a big running back payment from the Eagles again, because they're going to pay the O-line. They're going to pay the O-line. You can have really good running backs at a value cost.
All right, Riley Riff went to the or Reef, however they pronounce it, went to the IR and he was pretty good. And 3 of their linemen are limited as far as injuries go. So, but we always get these limited reports and then end up playing day of the game. So Sunday, we'll make a better known. But they all participated: Trent Browns, Michael Owenua, and Cole Strange. So we'll see what happens. But maybe they're a mess, maybe they're not. If barring injury, I guess I still think they're a solid line, and the Patriots always muck it up and make it a grind out game. So I think that's a matchup to watch, and I think it's going to be a lot closer than we think. It's the Brady game. The fans are going to be going nuts. Revenge from the Super Bowl, all that stuff. Even though it's 2 totally different things, those fans remember that. They're going to be retiring.
Tom Brady's going to remember that
at halftime.
Well, speaking of revenge, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, who was with the Chiefs last year. We all remember, post Super Bowl, what that was like with Juju. So I think that the Eagles have him kind of in their sights a little bit too, to repay him a little bit. I think I agree with you. I think it's definitely, if I'm Bill Belichick, time of possession is what I'm looking to do. I'm probably going to not totally disagree with Joe, but probably a little tighter than, what do you have, 27-17? Actually, is that what he had, 10 points? 2 scores?
Yeah,
I kind of flashed.
Joe Sheeran chiming in, 27-17.
I have Michael about it. Yeah.
Papiernik Jr., 29-16 Eagles. Mike Lauro coming in, 34-20 Eagles.
Wow.
So blowout city from most of the people. I read NFL.com. I think all but one had there was 10 guys. All but one had the Eagles winning by significant point differentiation. I think a few had close games. Quentin Moore, 27-24. Thank you, everyone, chiming in with their scores.
No, absolutely.
Please put your scores in. We would love to see them. And please hit that like button, that subscribe, that share button. We appreciate the support.
Yeah. Like I said, I probably am agreeing with Joe, which is not something we often do on the show. But I do think it's going to be a 10-point differential. And I'll explain when we get to our predictions in a minute why. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Bill Belichick is control of the time of possession. I mean, that's kind of what teams did who gave us struggles last year. Like when the Eagles did, against Washington and Commanders, we saw that. Time of possession was a big difference. The Saints game, time of possession was an issue. I mean, that was where you beat the Eagles at and keeping the ball out of their hands. And yeah, if their O-line can hold up and allow Zeke and Ramondre to do their job, that could be a way to keep things a little tighter than it should be. But I just don't think you're going to beat with Mac Jones' arm and hit their wide receiver core is good. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if it's going to be enough like to do as much damage as that could do, like from a time of possession standpoint.
Mike chiming in, Mac Jones will not have a good game. I think Mac Jones is running for his life. Definitely.
Well, his comments today, Mike, makes me feel that way. Like, he didn't just say, oh, we're playing one of the best defenses. You know, he said the best defensive line in the NFL. He knows what he's going up against and referred to them as quote-unquote beasts. So I have to imagine that, I don't want to say he's seeing ghosts, but he could be pretty quickly in this game. And I hope I'm right. I would love to see this game get away from him quickly, that maybe in the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, they can put in some subs or something and let them, because they do have a short turnaround with Thursday night football the following week at home for the home opener against the Vikings. So it could be interesting to see how this plays out, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. But yeah, I think, listen, Bill Belichick has a good scheme, a good mind for him. But can I ask you a question? Because one question I did have for you before we get into the last bit of this here. My last question to you was, Sirianni versus Belichick. Talk a little coaching real quick matchup. Can we start to say that the Bill Belichick success was more because of Tom Brady and not as much as Bill Belichick?
Well, since Brady's left, they're 25-25 with no playoff wins. Mm-hmm. So for one,
and Tom has a Super Bowl.
Yeah. So for one to argue the other way, I mean, what leg do you have to stand on? There really is none. The only thing you can say is that, their defense. I mean, their defense has got shredded too, though. They've had some fairly bad games, but personnel-wise, they don't have what they had. But Brady, that's part of the reason he left. They kept sticking him with slop on the perimeter. And he's like, dude, I can't work with this anymore. Like, I need weapons. So that's.
And I'm getting older. I can't carry this team as I used to.
Right. They don't believe. And then Belichick even said, they don't, as a philosophy, the Patriots, they don't believe in that. They believe in adding good players for the right price, but they don't believe in just going for it and going all out. And he referenced a few teams that actually won Super Bowls, but then they stunk fairly after, the Rams being one of them. But he's not saying it was right or wrong, but that's just not their philosophy. Anyhow, this is a big year for Belichick because he's probably on the hot seat. He arguably the greatest coach of all time, but now this is a big flaw. He did take them. He is the last person to take the Browns to the playoffs, though. I think that gets swept under the rug how he left there or got fired from there. He actually had some success there, but 25-25 without Brady. A new offense, new age, everything's changing now. It's not what it was. Like these defenses aren't the same. The rules are against them. So, maybe for his era and his time, but now time might be passing by for him. But as far as Sirianni versus him, that's a big deal. And Brian Johnson. We got to also remember Shane Steichen isn't here. Shane Steichen was under him for 2 years. You know what I mean? And now he has a new guy. And remember, we were crushing Nick Sirianni until he gave the play calling up to Shane Steichen. And then suddenly they started balancing the offense and running the football. So
it's funny you say that. That was probably the time I really started to like and believe in Nick Sirianni, is when he did that, because it didn't take him as long. It sometimes could take guys a season or two before they finally say, okay, maybe it's me. Like it only took him a few games, before he said, not a few games, but about a half a season or so before he finally said, okay, I'm not cut for this.
I don't think I won't even be saying to Brady love that. Yeah, I don't think Belichick cares about Brady, but I think the fans will be jacked up when I said that.
The fans are gonna go nuts when he goes. They haven't had anything to cheer for since he left. I mean,
Quentin Moore, great point here. That's why I say in that era, because remember when Brady was just a system quarterback and everyone said he's a fraud. He's just a system quarterback because all he would do is the little things. But that's because the Patriots had great defenses and a great field goal kicker in Adam Vinatieri. So great point there, Quentin. Gannon is trying to take credit for Nick giving up the play calling.
Really?
How would Gannon's on the defense? Oh, so Gannon's saying he told Nick to do it.
Oh my gosh! So he did it. Everybody told Nick to do it. We told Nick. Joe Sheeran, you could take credit for. We all thought he should give it up.
Fans.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like not what Joe's saying, but if Nick Gannon is saying that, then it's ridiculous. Like that.
Well, that's a question mark for me. Nick versus him. I mean, it is a question mark. So, okay.
Well, it's that time, Fred. We need some predictions from you.
Prediction time here. I think we do also forget Matt Patricia is also leaving there and coming here. The spread is 3.5. The Eagles are on the road. The starters have not played in the preseason. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. I think you're going to see a ton of slop. And I think the New England Patriots win this football game 24-23.
Wow. Freddie Burns has the Pats winning this game. Freddie, wow. I did not see that coming. I'm going to be honest with you. Did not see that coming at all.
And then Philadelphia is going to act like the sky's falling instead of just realizing it is what it is. A lot of new guys. The offensive line's pretty intact. I think they're running a new scheme. You got some young players out there. Joe alluded to Josh Jobe on the outside and moving like there's a lot of things that these guys just have not done yet. And I just think it's going to take a little bit. Factor in also the Super Bowl hangover, starting slow. Not like I think it's going to be a rough first 6 games here overall. I think they definitely go 1-1. I think if they beat the Patriots, they lose to the Vikings. If they lose to the Patriots, which I think they'll beat the Vikings on the 4-day rest. But we'll see. But that's what my gut. I got to go with what my gut feels.
Sure, no, I'm not asking you to lie to me.
I really can't do this, man. I don't want to, but I'm not. I just feel like that's with the spread being so small. I feel like Vegas, that's always a factor to me. Like, and then as soon as I saw everyone's scores coming in 10 plus NFL, I'm like, oh man, that always happens. And then the surprise loss happens. So we'll see.
Listen, we always say the first couple of weeks, even a few weeks, is preseason football because, like you said, a lot of these guys have not played it much at all.
But the Pats played their guys, though, is what I'm getting at. I think they're going to be more ready to play.
So I'm going to agree with part of what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you. I believe especially the first half will be sloppy.
Come on, now disagree with me. I like when you disagree.
Well, we're about to. Hold on a second. I agree with the fact that it's going to be a little sloppy. Don't get me wrong. I agree with that fact. I believe that they're going to be sloppiness. They're going to be getting used to each other. We saw this last year against Detroit. They had it was like 3 or 4 false start penalties on the Eagles offensive line or something in the first half of the football or something like that. It was a sloppy game. I expected it to be sloppy, especially with a lot of the new guys getting used to each other. But not to the point that they're going to lose. I'm going to put that out there. I agree with Joe. I believe that it will be a 10-point differential. I believe it will be sloppy in the first half. They might even be down in the first half going into the second half. But I think ultimately they will get back up to a 10-point lead, and they will be able to coast on that and get out of the game with the W. I will go with I'm going to go 28. I'm going to go 28-18 Birds.
10-point win. The spread is small because Tom Brady day. I don't think that's much of a factor, to be honest with you, Mike. But I do think you have a good point here with the Mac learning with the new offensive coordinator with Bill O'Brien. I also think Bill O'Brien is pretty good with that, limiting the stuff he'll do. But I factor in Sean Desai too. So like but it is a good point, really good point there. It's going to be interesting to see, in my opinion. I don't think this is just a blowout like everyone's saying. Obviously, I said that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a 20-point blowout or anything, 14 or more points. I think 10 points, and I believe it's going to be a little, maybe a garbage, like a little later field goal that makes it 10 points. I believe it's going to be tight for the most part. And like I said, I expect some sloppiness, especially in the first half from the Eagles, maybe even from the Pats, but more from the Eagles. It's just going to be, in this game, who can limit the mistakes and the turnovers, really, to be honest with you.
We will see, maybe.
So, guys, it's Wednesday night, getting late in the Wednesday night. So you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You got 3 more full days to wait till you wake up on Sunday football. I mean, get some football action tomorrow, because tomorrow I believe it's the Chiefs and Lions, right? Yeah, Chiefs and Lions tomorrow. So you start to get your NFL action then. But for Eagles football starts this Sunday. I know we're all excited for it. Please tune in to Edge of Philly Sports pre, halftime, and post game. I believe I'm going to be part of the pre-game with that. Also, PM and the AM kicking Sunday off as well, talking 4 for 4, but also talking the Eagles. It'll be interesting to see the things play out. A couple things. Once again, big old happy birthday to Joey. 40th birthday was the other day. So for those who didn't know, man behind the scenes, the main man here with me, Joe Sheeran.
Happy birthday, Joe. I didn't say that on the air, by the way. My fault. Happy birthday, man.
Yeah, big 4-0. Hopefully he's relaxing and chilling out. Also, not to change the tone of the show, but condolences to the Hugh Douglas and his family. For those who didn't know, I believe it was Sunday, late Sunday, he lost his 25-year-old son in a tragic car accident. So for those, Hugh, former Philadelphia Eagle, and also on 94 WIP's afternoon show. So, condolences to him, and if you ever remember, maybe send a little tweet love and prayers for him and his family. I never want to hear those kind of things. And also, Mike Williams' family, too. I don't know if anybody saw that earlier today. He got hurt at a construction site. A steel beam fell on his head. He was actually tweeted out that he passed away, but right now he's in the IC on life support. So some prayers for Mike Williams' family as well. Former Tampa Bay and Bills, right? He played for the Bills, too. Wide receiver.
Yeah.
So, other than that, guys, anything else you want to throw in there, Fred, before we head out?
Nah, go Birds. I picked them to lose, but I'm rooting my ass off for them. So it's going to be exciting.
It's only a job where you're okay with being wrong, right?
Yeah, that makes it funner, actually. It's easy to be wrong.
Yeah, you'll sit there and take your lumps next Wednesday if they get destroyed or they blow out the
From who? You and Joe?
Yeah.
Twitter,
yeah. But other than that, guys, check out EoPsports.com, edgeofphilly.com, whatever's easiest for you to remember. Like Freddie always says, subscribe, smash that like button, smash that follow button. At EoP Sports on Twitter. You'll see us on Twitter as well at Big Al EoP, and Freddie at Freddie Burns _. Check out all the social media posts. We'll keep you guys up to date on things, all the articles as well on this website. Tomorrow night, you'll have Mike Lauro with the Locker Room Sports coming up as well, right before the NFL kicks off. And then I believe the Union show will be going off with the Attacking Third, talking Union soccer. And then we'll get right into the weekend as well. So, guys, other than that, I want to thank our great sponsors over at Sherry'sTickets.com, Dolan's Bar, who else? Oh, PhillySportsTrips.com and SherryInjuryLaw.com. I'm Big Al.
I'm Freddie Burns. Go Birds.
Go Birds.